Can I say we have the schut having of Moshe, Baruch Kaufman, Reish Chabura, Reish Gavoya, Machoin Alizayev. Without further ado, please, the Rav, Reish coming from Lakewood. It's a good trip.
Okay, today's daf, the Mishnah says, Hilchos Shabbos Chagigas V'Ami'ilas Harim Karor Matluim B'Sara. It's literally here, standing on a mountain. Sorry, a mountain standing on here. The halachas of Shabbos and Chagigas and Me'ilas. So Gemara, what is this Haram Tluim B'Sara? What are we talking about? So Gemara says, Michtav Ksiven, Shabbos, so many parshas in the Torah, L'Sas Kol Malacha, there's many psukim of Shabbos. And obviously the Gemara doesn't feel it means the Lamates Malachas, doesn't say Zereya, Chayrish in the Torah, because that wouldn't be Harorim Pluim Basara, it wouldn't be that, we wouldn't give that term, it's Harorim Pluim Basara. So Gemara says, Leitzricha Chad Reb Abba, Dam Reb Abba, HaChoyfer Guma B'Shabbos, Vein Tzorcha La'afra Potter Leh. This is the famous halacha mlacha shein tzricha legufa, that if someone digs a hole on Shabbos, he doesn't want the hole, he just wants to playing with the dirt. He needs the dirt for something, so he's not chayiv. It's a very hard thing to understand. In Svara, what's the difference? Mali makes a nice hole. What's the difference if he wants the hole, he wants the dirt? So you tell me mlacha shein tzricha legufa. So that something is a big chiddush. So Gemara says kemanker Reb Shimon. That means the Mishnah, we don't want the Mishnah just to go like Reb Shimon, because we know Machlokes are all over Shabbos. Reb Yehuda, Reb Shimon, and Mlacha Shein Tzricha Legufa is Pater Chayiv. So we don't make the Mishnah of Haram Tluim B'Sara only if you're Reb Shimon. So the Gemara says, no. Afilu Tem Reb Yehuda, Hasa Mesaken Hacha Mekalkel. So here we're talking about a Mekalkel. So we're sort of switching the din. I mean, it could be the same case, digging the ground, but he's digging in a way of Kilkel. So mekalkel, even though Rabbi Yehuda holds lachshein suchel guf is chayiv, but it's not like Rabbi Yehuda is much more machmer in every halacha, specifically in lachshein suchel gufa. But mekalkel, Rabbi Yehuda agrees Shabbos you have to be as a ma'aseh tikkun, a masakin. Mekalkel is pater. Ironically, the Gemara Shabbos says when it comes to mekalkel, Reb Shimon is more machmer. Reb Shimon holds by two malachas, by Havara and by Chabura, mekalkel b'Chabura, mekalkel b'Havara. Reb Shimon happens to hold Chai, and Reb Yehuda holds Pater. So either way, when it comes to mekalkel, that's Pater. So the Mela, the Haram Tluim B'Sara is going on mekalkel. So Gemara says, "Mike Haram Tluim B'Sara." So what's the magic term Haram Tluim B'Sara? So Gemara says, "Yisod Amid Beis Melechus Machshavas Asur Torah, Melechus Machshavas Leiksiva." So very appropriate that we just had Parsha Kisisa, we start Vayakel now. This is the Parsha Shabbos in the Mishkan. Melechus Machshavas, that's the psukim we learned today and this coming Parsha. But that's Melechus Machshavas Asur Torah and Melechus Machshavas Leiksiva. What does that mean? Rashi says Leiksiva doesn't say it by Shabbos, it says it by the Mishkan. So the whole halacha is around Toiler Eretz Belima. The whole hour we always say Melechus Machshavas. You look here on the side of the Gemara, they give you 10 Gemaras in Shas. And it doesn't even say it by Shabbos. It doesn't say in the parasha Zachar Shem Shabbos Lakadshoy It says it by the Mishkan, so that's why it's Harorim Tluim B'Sara. And we only know from the Smichas. The Smichas, Rashi says in this week's parasha, we should song parasha Vayakel, parasha Shabbos, the parasha is Mishkan, only made in Lachas Shabbos L'Shabbos. Okay. So, first Torah is, we know that the Melechus Machshavas Asur Torah is most commonly, and most Sugyos, it's talking about the halacha of, it's talking about the halacha of Kavana. Misasik. That's what the Gemara always says, increases Daf Yates, on the paper, the Gemara, I don't have time to read it, but the Gemara increases Oisvavir, Masasik, B'Shabbos Potter, my time Melechus Machshavas Asur Torah. The Ardim Masasik and Kol Torah Kula, it's a long sugya, increases, different cases, but that's the most pasha thing. Machshavas, Lasha Machshava, a thought out malacha, someone who's Masasik, about the Shoygig, he is Chayv by Shabbos, but a Masasik is Potter. So the Gemara brings in Sanhedrin, the Gemara brings in Ketzad Regel. Always the pshat over there is that he wasn't a skaven, a certain chasarn in kavana. Akidei Kach, the Tosis and Ksubis, and the Sugya on Daf Hey Amid Beis about the Bilas Mitzvah on Shabbos, Tosis says, so why is every Davar Shein Miskaven Potter? The Gemara says, according to Reb Shimon, Davar Shein Miskaven is Mutter. Another Machlokes Reb Shimon, Davar Shein Miskaven. So Tosis is bothered. 1 second. According to Reb Shimon, Mekalkel B'Chabura is Chayiv. So that means Reb Shimon holds, apparently you don't need Melachs M'Shavas. How's our Gemara? Mekalkel is also Potter because Melachs M'Shavas. So if Reb Shimon holds you don't need Melachs M'Shavas, obviously by Chabura, so every Davar Shein Miskaven, we should have a new thing. By Chabura should be Chayiv according to Reb Shimon. That's what Tosis says in Ksubas Daf Hamid Beis, Ois Gimel. And Tosis says, he says the idea, Tosis it says there's a chilik. That Tosis says, a Shloim Misasik, Miskaven L'Malacha, you are Miskaven L'Malacha. There's different cases. Somebody's Miskaven to Lach Doiches HaTolosh, he didn't realize, the Mechuber, but he's Miskaven for what he's doing. Masha Enkein. So then the whole chesron is it's not Melachs Machshavas. You're doing a Malacha, but it's not Machshavas, right? You're not the Machshava. Masha Enkein. Tosis says, when Ein Miskaven Malacha Klal. A regular Ein Miskaven, he's dragging a bench, it makes a ditch. He's not B'chlal thinking about it. Psikresh is a different story, but a regular Ein Miskaven, he's not Mecham from Malacha. So Mamela, Tosis says, so basically you have Ein Miskaven, that's totally out. That's B'chlal na Malacha, that's without this Nimlach Machshavas. And there, of course, you're Potter. But when it comes to Mekalkel, let's say, Tosis says this next level, Mekalkel or Misasik, there you're trying to do Malacha, that's Achsar Melachs Machshavas. Okay. Now the Nesiv,
I'm sure. Which is greater?
Which is more Chamer. So Ein Miskaven is the most lenient, so to speak, because there you're not Mechavim for the Malacha at all. It's like someone Ein Miskaven, he's someone he's dragging a bench and makes a hole.
So
Rabbi Yehuda holds the Ein Miskaven. Ein Miskaven is also is a Chai.
So what do you hold Melachs Machshavas then? He has to hold his also.
Oh, okay. So what was really Rachshav? Okay, very good. We're going to get to that. Very good. Okay. So the Nesivis, the Chavos Das, Nesivis has a sefer on the Sechta Ksubis called Beis Yaakov. And that Tosis, Nesivis has the following kasha. It says, and this is what comes to our Gemara. Nesivis says, Tosis just told us here in Ksubis, the Tosis says that according to Reb Shimon, there's no ptur there's no din Melachs Machshavas when it comes to Chabura. Right? That's what Tosis apparently is saying. Tosis is saying that Chabura is the din of Melachs Machshavas. Reb Shimon holds that Havara and Chabura are doicha that idea. There's no Melachs Machshavas Chabura. But Ein Miskaven, Reb Shimon agrees because Ein Miskaven is not Malacha B'chlal. And by the way, Tosis brings a raya because you see Ein Miskaven is a P'tur called Tarkula. It says by Shatness, if the Moichrik Sus, if the name Miskaven, it's not a problem. Or by Nazir it says he's Choifif Mefaspis in the Sar. He's not trying to he's not trying to hear out. So you see that Ein Miskaven is like a more broad P'tur. Actually, obviously Yehuda doesn't hold it. The Gemara says by Mila and Saras, different cases. So the Nesiva says so it follows from Tosis. That what about something that's not a P'tur called Tarkula? Dahainu, Lach Shein Tzrich L'Gufa. What about Lach Shein Tzrich L'Gufa by Havara and Chabura? What would Shimon hold about a Chabura that's not Ein Tzrich L'Gufa? So here's the shayla. So now, if you're telling me, Tosis is telling me that Reb Shimon holds Mekalkel B'Chabur's Chayiv, that means Besasik Chayiv, that means Reb Shimon holds the whole Dim Melachs Machshavas doesn't apply by Havara, because Gzeir Sakasa by Havara and Chabura. So that means Melach Shein Tzrich L'Gufa also shouldn't apply. So it shouldn't be a P'tur. And he says the Gemara in Sanhedrin, by the Sugya of someone who makes a Chabur, Makeh Aviv over there, that whole Sugya, the Gemara in Sanhedrin before that, Reb Shimon would say the P'tur Melach Shein Tzrich L'Gufa by Chabura also. By this Malacha also. So he says, so
what's the kasha?
No, so the kasha is that why? No, it's why does Reb Shimon hold Melach Shein Tzrich L'Gufa is also P'tur Melachs Machshavas? Right, and no, the Melach Shein Tzrich L'Gufa Reb Shimon holds is Potter, but when it comes to Chabura, Reb Shimon holds you don't say the Klal of Melachs Machshavas. You don't have that leniency. because that's what Shimon holds. Tais is saying Mesasik is chayiv, according to Shimon by Chabura, and Mekalkel is chayiv. Right? Only Ein Miskaven is pater, because Ein Miskaven is Ein Miskaven Locha Klau. That's a Kol Tarkula Digadin. So Nesivus is asking, but Loch Shein Tzricha Legufa follows through Taisus logic by Chabura should not have a ptur according to Shimon. Shimon doesn't hold of the ptur by Chabura, and we know it does. So that's the Gemara in Sanhedrin. That Sugyos in Sanhedrin is mavur that Shimon would pater if the case was Moshe, he doesn't need the dam, but the case is Moshe Tzricha Legufa.
Wouldn't every Mekalkel be a Malach Shein Tzricha Legufa?
Well, Moshe Tzricha Legufa, not necessarily. No, because he needs, let's say, he's taking out dam for something. This case is there. He needs tzarech, the afer. He needs it for something. He's mekalkel. Well, sometimes he's mekalkel in one thing and mesaken in oifen acher. Yeah, but he's tzricha legufa for what it is. Just this derech kilkel. So Siva says you have to say that takum loch shein tzricha legufa is not because of malachas machshavas. You make a mistake. Echanami, it's not ptur kal tarkula. Vayisvayis malachas shein tzricha legufa is not because malachas machshavas. That's his bottom line. The problem is our Gemara, because we read our Gemara. The Gemara is mavur that malachas shein tzricha legufa is a ptur malachas machshavas, because that's my karam etlun b'sara. Why is Shabbos HaRav etlun b'sara? It's like the Gemara because malachas shein tzricha legufa. That's what we started with. Someone who's digging for the dirt. And the Gemara says, no, it says a Masakin. What do we do? Rabbi Yehuda, somewhere Mekalkel. And why is HaRav etlun b'sara? Malachas machshavas asur Torah. So that means the Gemara is saying malachas shein tzricha legufa is a ptur of malachas machshavas. So how do you work this out?
He's not talking about. He's going according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't
so you're saying a chiddush. I also want to say this. The Stipler also we have others saying this, that the Gemara switched it around. In other words, the Gemara originally it's a chiddush. I'll tell you why. Because the Gemara starts with what's HaRav etlun b'sara. Thinks the Gemara pulls out at the end. My HaRav etlun b'sara. You think that's going back on the whole Gemara? Why was it originally HaRav etlun b'sara? So we have to say a different pshat. The first the Gemara thought HaRav etlun b'sara is Stam Zeshvar Halacha. Stam HaRav etlun b'sara. It's Lach Shein with Potter. Such a chiddush. Then the Gemara says Mekalkel. So from Mekalkel HaRav etlun b'sara, maybe Mekalkel is not such a chiddush. So after that we'll say Lach Shein. It's a big chiddush to get pshat.
The classic case of Shein Tzricha Legufa with Rashi is like so it's a mess, right?
Yeah.
Rashi said you don't want the mace in this place. So you take the mace out of it, but since you don't want the body, you don't want a dead body of a cloud, so it doesn't matter.
You don't want it there, you just want it out of here.
You just want,
Right.
So because you don't, it's Shein Tzricha Legufa because you don't want to mess in the first place. You don't mess here, you want to mess there.
Right, that's Rashi's pshat.
Right. So
Yeah.
what does that have to do
So
with
it's a
Mitzvah? It's a totally different thing.
Yeah, all right, good. So it's a good. Now you'll see where Rashi says by us. That's the problem. That's what I want to explain. So how in the world did malachas shein tzricha legufa get to malachas machshavas? And I'll ask even better. Why is Mekalkel malachas machshavas? We start off. What is the pashut malachas machshavas asur Torah? Malachas machshava. It has something to do with the kavana. It's malachas machshavas, malacha with intent. So mesasik is the chesaron in the intent. Mashenke in these things, Mekalkel, he knows 100% what he's doing. Malachas shein tzricha legufa, he knows 100%. There's absolutely no chesaron in kavana. So what is this? What would it be? It's a shaila if it's malachas machshavas by malachas shein tzricha legufa, but for sure Mekalkel is malachas machshavas. What's going on? Okay, so let's say the vart, and then we'll tie everything together.
Isn't machshavas chashuv? It's not a chashuv malacha.
Okay, so that's it. Always have to go back to the psukim. HaRav etlun b'sara. Everything's in the Torah Shabbat. There's two parashas of where it says malachas machshavas. In one place it doesn't say malachas machshavas. You know, the parasha Shabbos in the Mishkan, in parashas Kisisa, and then an almost identical parasha in Vayakov. Let's take Kisisa and today's laning, beginning of the parasha, towards the beginning. It says, Ve'ei Ve'darsham Hashalem Ve'ei Krasi V'Shem B'Tzalel Ve'amalei Seruach Elikim B'Chacham L'Sun Das Chom Locha L'Achshav Machshavas L'Asis B'Azor Kesem Choishes. And then it says, U'Vacharoishes Evan L'Malas L'Roishes says L'Asis B'Chom Malacha. So if you just read 5 psukim, L'Asis B'Chom Malacha. Now in Vayakov it's almost word for word, but it adds one word in that pasuk. Hu kar Hashem b'shem b'tzal benuri v'mal Yisrael. Everything is word for word. V'charoshis evel amalas v'charoshis eitz la'asis b'chol meleches machshavas. So I don't say it was added after the Chet Egel Chaysish. But here in the second time, the Torah says machshavas. So what was in the first parsha? So Kanzai knows what is the lashon machshavas? We say lashon machshavas can mean a few things. The machshavas could be going on, like I said, kept saying kavana machshava, do a malacha with intent, with lashon machshava. But also there's a state the Targum teaches b'chol vidas umanvan lashon umnis, a ma'isa umnis. There's what you meant. Oh no, the malachas machshavas means a productive malacha, or maybe a lashon a chashva malacha. It's a malacha that's calculated. It's going on the malacha. I'm talking the yeshivish sprach. There's one that's then more in the gavra, and one's in the chefza. A kavana means he's a mesasik. He's not. It's not malachas machshavas. Means he could be doing a fine job, but he's just pashat. He doesn't realize the thing is a mechuber and it's kolish. He's not trying to skaven lachter zeh. And there's a chesaron in his thought process, in his machshava. The second level is a machshavas, like says Maaseh Choshe by the Mishkan. Everything was a Maaseh Umnis. So Malas Mechavlos is going on the Malacha. That is saying Kisisa. So after Falpel, the first part says Lachshav Machshavas. It says it already says Choshe Machshavas. It says that lashon. So there was an inyan of Machshavas, but this is Nitoisif that is doing a Maaseh Umnis. That's what Mekalkal. So Kanzazoi, the Gemara was looking. We knew the regular old din of Lachs machshavas when it comes to mesasik increases and all those sugyos and shas that Pasha the person doesn't have. The mesasik applies even to other halachas. That wasn't the HaRav including the Sarah. The Gemara was looking for even a higher level. I remember one say a bigger chiddush, a chiddush of mekalkel. We'll get to Malach Shein Tzipul in a minute, but mekalkel that's a level. That's something else. That means the machshava is the ear. But he's not doing a productive malacha. He's not doing a zevi the mishkan. He's mekalkel the thing. That the alapes of a ma'aser umnis is a tikkun, is davar mesukin. I make it up myself. But Rashi there's one Gemara that's the last ois over here. Ches in Beya on Daf Yud Gimel. The Gemara talks about Gemara malacha for ma'aser and Shabbos, and the Gemara says are the difference between Shabbos and ma'aser. And the Gemara says, you get Shabbos, there's Hamadas, Arema, the putting of the pile. Looking around, and put Rashi, but looking Rashi, what does it mean over there? Making a nice heap, making it ready for the mat. Over there, means, the Rashi says, Ma'isa Umnas. So there, the Pshat is, that's this. That's what in the calculus. I would just shtaltzu even, there's another Torah Shabbos of Shinui. Right? Shinui. There's an interesting thing on Shabbos. We know if someone writes with his left hand, or if it's a right, he writes with left. He writes with his right hand. Writes with it says he's potter. The Ramah brings down Even Ezer in Kuf Chav Gimel by get that lechatchila you should write the Sefer should write with the right hand. Writes with the left hand is a b'diavad this kosher. So frag the Beis Shmuel. I understand that ksiva b'small is it's nishkin ksiva. You see by Shabbos it's potter. So he says Elamai Shabbos Malachas Machshavas Asur Torah. So with the Shinoi it's B'chlal. So what does he mean over there? What does the Beis Shmuel mean? Malachas Machshavas. He understands 100% what he's writing. No chesar and kavana. It's a ke'ena. It's not a ma'aser uman. It's right to this idea. In other words, the second level that we're saying Malachas Machshavas is going on the quality of the work. Let's like that we learn out from the Mishkan that has to be Ma'aser Umnis. So let's say Mekalkel, or if we're talking about Kalacha Yad, that wouldn't be Bechlal. That would be this added in of Malachas Machshavas. Just to bring this out, the idea, the Iglei Tal in a few places, he's Miyasid and Shinu. He says there's always big difference between Shabbos and Kol Torah Kul. He says there's two types of Shinuyim. There's a Shinui in the Maisa, in the action that you find special by Shabbos. If you do it with your elbow, right? If someone cooks basa b'cholav with his elbow, it's the same issa. There's no such heter of Shinui. In Shabbos, it's a special halacha. We learn out from the Mishkan how he's doing it. That's the type of Shinui in the Maisa, in the Pu'ula. And then there's the product. There's also, right, someone koised b'small, well there is actually it's both Shinui, but let's say someone on Shabbos, he cooks in the sun, we find chama, it's a bizarre way of doing it, But the point is the Maisa could be the same, but the product is different. So Shabbos, we always say we have to look at the product and we have to look at the action. So that's over here what we're saying also, the machshavas in the pula and the machshavas in the result. Oh, but what about Melach Shein Tzricha L'Gufa? Melach Shein Tzricha L'Gufa is coming out with this whole Nesivus and there's a Taisus and Yuma. It's not so pashut if a Melach Shein Tzricha L'Gufa is B'chla Melach's machshavas. That shouldn't fit into any description. Doing a perfect Ma'aseh Umnus, he's doing. He knows what he's doing. But Rashi says, that's the Rashi Bayos. Rashi says because of his definition in Loch Shein Tzricha L'Gufa that I just want it out. And Rashi calls that a Chasam L'Chashavas in the Kavana idea. Zok Rashi. I'm not, my kavanah is not on this thing. It's just get it out. My kavanah is not to bring the hoitzos mace, your case, or by the whole. My kavanah is not for what I'm doing here. That's also chasar. That's also chasar melech machshavas, which is up for debate. But you see from Rashi taking it even, we would even call a third din maybe even. There's another level machshavas. Forget about Forget about the ma'aseh umnus. Is another that you have to have kavana for exactly the way that's machshav mamish lashon. I don't know, maybe the third word cheshbon. I don't know, like a calculated thing. But the way they did it, the machshava is in that thing itself. That's what Rashi holds. You learn out from. You learn Melach Shein Tzricha L'Gufa. But Taisus in Shabbos seems to just say stam it's not doimit to the Mishkan. Which, by the way, doesn't mean Melach's Machshavas. That's just a general din. There has to be doime to the Mishkan. Now, so we're saying all this Torah. I just thought try to give some a background to this idea. I think it's an idea in Kol Torah Kula. So they say it's the Gezach. We always think Melach's Machshavas is a Kula. You need Melach's Machshavas, not Mesasik, and not Mekalkel, and Kalachayam, all these dinim. But Be'etzem, there's one Gemara in Baba Kama that seems to use Melach's Machshavas for a Chumrah. So the Gemara over there is talking about its Oy Zayin here on the paper, by Liba of Lipsa Ruach, the Eish, and the blows. So it says, if you have enough, K'dei Lobaysa Chayiv and La'apatis. The Gemara is bothered, it should be like Zoyre v'Ruach Mesiyasa. Okay. So the Gemara says, that's all b'Shabbos, because the Melach of Zoyra, you winnow, and then the wind helps. So why by Baba Kama, why by Nazikin, the Mazik of Eish, do we say that you're potter? Tarot says that's what would be a grama. So the Gemara says, Hani milinim Shabbos, Melach Shabbos asutayra. Aval hacha grama, ba'amu v'grama nizaken potter. So what does that mean? Melach Shabbos. So we're using Melach Shabbos for a chumrah now. So what does that mean? So obviously we see, I'm just bringing out the idea that sometimes the Gemara uses the nusach, Melach Shabbos doesn't always mean the same thing. Sometimes the same Melach Shabbos in the context means like Makalkal. Sometimes the same Melach Shabbos Mesase. Sometimes the Gemara is even saying Melach Shabbos as opposed to Nazikin that Yechayev. So you see that the term Melach Shabbos, the Gemara is using Hein L'Ptor, Hein L'Chiyev, and now the way we're saying there's different, clearly two different definitions in Melach Shabbos. In the pula or in one or in the Ma'aseh Umnus. Shota shtal zu a Yereim, interesting Yereim. Something always has to be Ben Hashmashas. The Yereim, and we know has a shita that Ben Hashmashas starts earlier. So he holds actually what we call Shki is a Reitzei Sakachavim. That's what he holds. That's what some people Erev Shabbos, they 18 minutes. And the shita the Yereim. So the Yereim asks on himself. That the Gemara always says Tzeisek HaChavim is much later. I'm telling you Tzeisek HaChavim means much earlier. The Gemara says more. Tzeisek HaChavim is way after Shkia. So he says, Shkefelach, Ein lahakbed al Tzeisek HaChavim. Sheish lon shnei perushim. Kamer dvarim yesh betalmud shel shoynim shave u'pirish chalak. We're called Tzvei Dinim, but it's not. It just means the Gemara is using the same lashon. And he gives an example. He says, Gedule Karka. A lot of times, Gedule Karka means that mamash grows from the ground. Sometimes the Gemara calls Ein Disha Gedule Karka. Some Gemara, Behema is Gedule Karka. He says another Stam Shvar Mecheska Shimur means two different things. One's talking about in the different Machloiksim in Baba Kama, one by Ramei Rabbi Yehuda, one by Papa and Hunavei Yeshua. So you see that. So he says, so don't be bothered that says Chav means two different things. So Afanu Noimar This is Melachas Machshavas, even though the Gemara is using one term, Melachas Machshavas Asur Torah. Sometimes the Gemara, it's a Lashon Mushal, the Gemara is using it for different things. Okay. So I want to just end off with two nafkaminas. If Takum Melachas Shein Tzricha L'Gufa, we're saying it's a Klor Machloikis, Rashi and Taisus and Shabbos, and we saw in the Sivas, is Takum Melachas Shein Tzricha L'Gufa also Alts Melachas Machshavas, or is it a stam a different Torah, like it's not done to the Mishkan? And really that's the Taish. Taisus in Shabbos, he holds there's nothing to do with Melachas Machshavas. He says Melachas Shein Tzricha L'Gufa means you're not doing for the Tachlis that they did in the Mishkan. Nothing to do with Melachas Machshavas. So we say an afkamina like this, that my chavrusa, it's Moiris. The Gemara in Makkos talks about someone who's malaket here, a white hair, so malaket levanis mitach shchayris. The sugi over there that it's the isser of loisilbash. So it says if he does on Shabbos, he bichayev. So Taisus over there says, Taisus says he bichayev because the malacha. Taisus saying malacha shein tzricha l'gufa, and it's going like Rabbi Yehuda. Because according to Shem's Malacha Shein Tzricha L'Gufa, he doesn't need the hair. Forget it, he wants to get rid of it. So it's a classical Malacha Shein Tzricha L'Gufa. So Elamai, he's Chayiv is only L'fi Rabbi Yehuda. So if he's that should come out, the Shulchan Aruch Paskins like Reb Shimon, he brings the Rambam Shitas like Rabbi Yehuda, but everybody else, most of the Sugyos and Shas go like Reb Shimon, Reb Shimon go Reb Shimon. So come out, this halacha shouldn't be true. The problem is in Shulchan Aruch Paskins this halacha. The Shcharis B'Teich Levanis is Chayiv. Why is he Chayiv? So it's just short on time, but I've got another shtickle Torah. But the Negei Melachas Machshavas, it can zayin. It's the question of how you're learning the Torah Melachas Shein Tzricha L'Gufa. Why? Because if you hold the Melachas Shein Tzricha L'Gufa, the idea is just it's not doimit to the Mishkan. So it's not doimit to the Mishkan. The Mishkan, whenever they did toilish, it was for the hair. They need for the izim, whatever everything they were doing. So that's the Exer Sakos and Melachas Shein Tzricha L'Gufa. Says the Gufa means the way that what exactly they did in the Mishkan. So it's not even a svara 100%. It's just the way that we learn out. The way it has to be doimit to the Mishkan. So it could be gavaldig tikkun. But if you hold like Rashi, then Melachas Shein Tzricha L'Gufa, the Torah is it's a chsar Melachas Machshavas. That somehow we said that whatever Taich was saying Melachas Machshavas is felt in the chsar and the Melacha. It's not that there's a dude that has. So here ein lecha Machshavas gdol mizu. You could say a svar because he's mesak and adrav. It's a gavaldig tikkun that he's doing, or there might be because of the isser, might be a svar of achshave, whatever. Over there, it's mamash machshavas. It's not mashenk according to Toys is the chesarn and doimit to the Mishkan. One other nafkamina is what would be by a psik reisha. We talked before about Einam Eskavin. Toys says Einam Eskavin stam has no connection to Melachas Machshavas. That's a term called Tarkula. But we know by psik reisha. Talking before, Rabbi Yehuda Zainam Eskavim Psik Reisha, he is Chayiv. So Pashup Shad, according to Shimon, even he agrees. Moide always says Moide Abai Roman Tavai Moide B'Shim Psik Reisha means by Psik Reisha he agrees that you Chayiv. So the Raisa boy it comes now like Mechavan. Amai says a Toisus in Yuma, the big sugya over there about Mitzaref by the Kohen Gadol and Kippur and Lamadalit. Toisus says has Mefalpel over there. Toisus has Reish Tak Etzad and other Rishonim also that according to Reb Shimon he's moide that's aser. It's still not Deiraisa because even the Psik Reisha L'Maisa you're not mechaven. That's not your Iker Kavana. So even though it's a Psik Reisha, Yachai. So what's the Shayla L'Chayra? If you hold this Kemechaven, Avada you'll if it's Kemechav, there's Yechayiv. But the question is that could be still Chesar in Melachas Machshavas. He said Einam Eskam Machlal is even better. But even when it's a Psik Reisha, you're still not Macham for that thing. You know, you're opening the fridge, the light goes on. It's Psik Reisha. Well, Maisa, that's not your Iker intent. So even though if there would be let's say if we're saying Melachas Shein Tzricha L'Gufa could have a Torah of Melachas Machshavas, even though you know what you're doing, that's not the point. The point is the Malacha is not that exacted Malacha. It's not that calculated Malacha. Melachas Machshavas, the Cheshbon of the Malacha is not that way. So here also, Lamaisa, you Cheshbon Malacha, even though it's a Psik Reisha, and you know it's happening. 100%. I know by Melachas Shein Tzricha L'Gufa, Psik Reisha, for sure the Leinichale is very similar to Melachas Shein Tzricha L'Gufa. Melachas Shein Tzricha L'Gufa, I know it's making the hole, but it's Psik Reisha, but I'm doing something else. I'm getting the dirt. So even though I'm aware that this is not that calculate malach like the Mishkan, so that will be some malach Shabbos. So maybe that could be pshat in this sad that even a psik reisha, it's still not deraisa according to Shimon, because with deraisa you would still have the ptur on malach Shabbos. So getting back to what we said, even though Shimon holds mekalkul and those things, and by havara and by chabura chayev, that means that yisoy, that level, that idea of malach Shabbos, that Reb Shimon doesn't hold. That's exeris hakos. It doesn't mean we knock out. Came back to the Kasha and the Sivis, that it doesn't knock out the whole Melech Shabbos. It doesn't mean Shimon doesn't hold of Melech Shabbos by all Havara and Chabura. It just means he knocks out that shlav, that level that we're saying the Kalkal, or he said Kalach Hayad, where it's not doing that Maisa Omnis. There Shimon doesn't hold because the Gzeres HaKasa from Milo or Tzveif Spas Koyin, that there's no Ptur, Masha Enke, and the other dinim of Melech Shabbos, even Reb Shimon would be masking that you would have over there. I'll just end over Agudah. So say shtikol. This that we always shtalsu Shabbos to the Mishkan on all these levels, Melech Shabbos or Stam that we learn out the Malachas in the Mishkan, Eila Dvarim, and the Malachas they did in the Mishkan. So Ken Zayin that obviously there's a inherent connection between Shabbos and the Mishkan. I'll just before I say that, I'll start with the Rav's not here. I know the Rav says there's a whole Marsha says by the Makaishish that the Marsha says that Lach Shein Tzrich L'Gufa, if he was in the Skav and L'Shem Shemayim, so Marsha asks it should be Lach Shein Tzrich L'Gufa. So Marsha said I'll not follow with that kasha. I just saw over Shabbos that some learned that the Makaishish was really right by Mara, right away by the beginning, because Rashi says it was the Shabbos Rishayna. There's a lot of problems with this. The Pashup Pshat was Chayav Misa before Mount Torah, but there is a Pshat that Shabbos Rishayna doesn't mean after the Meraglim. It means it was earlier. So Fizah, Kenzain, what I'm trying to bring out, what was Shabbos before the Mishkan? Was you learn all these things? What was it before the Mishkan? So where we're saying all these Melech Shabbos, all these Torah Dainul Mishkan, Kan Zayin, Melech Shein Tzrich L'Gufa would have been Chayav.
Shabbos we learn from Mara, right?
Yeah. So Kan Zayin and Mara, if someone did Malacha, Melech Shein Tzrich L'Gufa, all these halachas would be Chayav. What? I'm asking. So normally you don't know what happened. So Bakapanim, so there be such a tzad. And the emes is that probably the whole L'Shem Shemayim the Skaven was Gufa, if you learn it was after the Meraglim, because he saw Klal Yisrael wasn't going into Eretz Yisrael. So if it happened earlier, then maybe he was a Tzrich L'Gufa. Okay, just something to think about. In the Zemer, some say the Zemer of Shabbos. There's a Zemer Yom Shabbos Kodesh. People say it's, I don't know if so many people say it, but it's in the Zmiris. So it says Chukaiseh b'Mara. It's Stavu Ba'azar, Karon B'Sara, our Sugyos, Tluim Hilchesel, and that says Shoymei Mitzvah Yinchalul Yom Shku B'Shabbos B'Tzivesel. So that part you'll know is from the song. But the first part is Chukaisel b'Mara. Right, Mara was the Chukim. Nitztavu Ba'azara, which Mashma didn't have Skila then, which is Hazara, and the Karon B'Sara. So I was thinking, what's the Chuk of Shabbos? Kipshuta, we say Mara they got the Chukim. Sham Samloi Chuk is a Mara. So the Chukim is Paraduma. Or dinim is chukim. What Shabbos is a chayk? Shabbos we don't think of as a chayk, but we see all these dinim. The haram flin besaras. Shabbos is a chayk. Two people do the same thing, like the Ramban says. The Rishonim say haitzaz malacha grua, because a person takes a tissue in his pocket and he walks out to Rosh Hashanah, he's chayiv. The other person is schlepping a couch the whole Shabbos upstairs, downstairs, he's schwitzing, he's mamish knocked out, but there's no isur deraisa. So Shabbos malacha we understand it means bria, yitzira. Someone created something, so you see the whole Shabbos, all these dinim add to that. They're not called Terkula dinim. These lachs machshavas and lach shishich legufa and all these yisoides. So Kanzai Chukaisel is already that was the Chayk and Mara that they takagat hoitzo, which is very schwer to understand. So Chukaisel b'Mara and it's tavu Karon b'Sara. That's like much our sugya Karon b'Sara. So maybe a pshat I'll be our sugya in the Zemer. But maybe I say try to say more of a deeper a drush a little bit the connection between Shabbos and the Mishkan. In this week's parasha, you see interesting thing. The building of the Mishkan is so connected with Haitzah and Shabbos with the Koli Al Mehavi. By them not bringing Shabbos, they stopped for Shabbos, that was like by the building of the Mishkan. And you find Yirmiyah on the opposite, by the Churban. Yirmiyah says, "Al tisu ma'asav b'yom HaShabbos." They said there's going to be a Churban because the people are going. He sees they go out and he's mourning them that they're doing her carrying on Shabbos. So the Zelba by the Rosh Hashanah bought in Shabbos. The Hilchos Shabbos bought the Mishkan and Chashon the Hepech that it was Garim the Churban. We always find it in Kol Kisvei that Imali, if they Shmir Shabbos, Miyad Nigolan. So you see the Geula is connected to Shabbos. There's a var from the Bel, they say from the Bel Zerav that the Gemara says in Pesachim that Avram called the Makkah Mikdash Har Shemirah, and Yitzchak called it a Sada, and Yaakov called it a Bayis. So he said Derech Gematria, maybe they heard this var, that the Mishkan was the Machna, it was the Machna Shechina. Machna, he says Gematria, Machna is 103. He says when Avram came, Avram added the second Machna, the second Mechitza. 2 times Machna is 206, is Har with the Koil. He says Yitzchak added the third Mechitza. So he made Machna times 309, is Gematria Sada. Yaakov made the fourth Machna, that's a Bias, and Bias is 412, which is Machna times 4. He says that Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to make the finals, the Gag, that's Vaschana, and he davened 515 tefillas, because that would have been 103 times 5, 515. Adkan Divrei Bel Zerav. So who Maisa was Mashlemet? It was David HaMelech. What did David HaMelech call the Mikdash? He called it Tefillah. Now, based Tefillah, he said Ani Tefillah. He called the Makom Tefillah. So Tefillah, the Ben Ish Chai says, Tefillah is Gematria 515. So that is the Hashlama, the fifth. That was the Makom Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to be in the Chur, but David HaMelech, so it's Har, Soda, Bias, and then Tefillah. That was David HaMelech was the Gemar, and that's Tefillah's Gematria 515. So he says a beautiful remes. Shteit v'shamru b'nei Yisrael as a Shabbos, Lasis is a Shabbos. So the Chaim raises, what's the double lashon? Shamru b'nei Yisrael is a Shabbos. What's Lasis is a Shabbos? So he says the Shabbos is so connected to the Geula. Shamru b'nei Yisrael as a Shabbos. If they keep the Shabbos, Lasis is a Shabbos. That's going to make the HaShabbos. HaShabbos is Har, Soda, Bayis, Tefillah. That those 4 bechinas, those things that it was built. They built the Mishkan, so that's going to allow us to Shabbos. So we go through the Shabbos and the Malachas of Shabbos and learning. We started 2 years ago. Daf Yomi started say the Moed. We start with Shabbos now. Chagiga, we're ending almost with Shabbos. So Shabbos that's the key to the Geula, and then we should all be Zoichet to the Vishamanei Shabbos. Last of Shabbos, we Zoichet to the Miyad Negolim, maybe.